On today's show, old boats get new life here in Minnesota if they can survive Lee Waldon's saw.
I hope they can do it without it falling.
This is our fun!
One Minnesota community celebrates wind chills with kites.
We're actually going to poach that pheasant.
Plus a rich winter soup to keep you warm on the coldest, snowiest days.
Minnesota Bound. Brought to you by Minnesota's select GMC dealers.
Hi everybody, Bill and I welcome you to the show.
Up first, we are headed to Buffalo, Minnesota, where a bunch of old boats on blocks kind of caught our attention.
Vintage watercraft that seem to have no life left in them.
Until you meet the owner. The scars, cracks, warps, all entries in time's diary of life on water. In old worn boats, some see doom. One collector sees beauty.
And this area is the main part of our nautical maritime antiques, if you want to call it that.
Lee Waldon started collecting clocks as a kid. That passion led to all this. Minnesota's menagerie of all things maritime, many personally picked and shipped home by Lee and his wife.
We've had 78 semi-loads into our shop that we purchased in England.
I've always liked the nautical things.
Some of these are close to 100 years old.
Lee always liked woodwork too.
He started out making English pubs because we used to bring back a lot of pubs from England.
We've sold over the years probably about 40 of the English pubs.
But he dreamed of floating a new idea. To understand is to sneak outside to the yard where memories sit on blocks. The place old boats go to die. These old freshwater vessels that have seemingly sailed. But not on Lee's watch.
When you see them like this, you kind of go, okay, what's going to happen here?
It's fun. When it's in bad shape, it's not hard on my soul. My soul says, save whatever you can.
Waiting for the boards to fall out from underneath.
In each cut, Lee sees a new vision.
Okay, side number 2.
For the old Eye of Orion. He and his buddy Chuck chop it in 2.
I hope they can do it without it falling.
A couple of pry bars in here.
So far, so good, and at least Chuck is the one holding it, not me.
So it's beyond restoration, but we save it from going into the junk pile. Next step is getting a person here to move it.
Lee's got that covered too. The neighbor Tom helps get the stern from backyard to the shop.
We're clear. Good.
It is in here that Lee's old boats come back to life. Simple designs whipped up in his mind.
I begin the salvage, I get an idea in my mind how to set them up, how it's going to be formed into a bar, and really don't have anything except a pencil drawing that I do for myself to bring about an idea.
Transformation happens in just weeks.
Probably close to 100 hours. This is a transom from a approximately 1956 Larson.
Lee builds bars and desks out of these old boats.
Sign, if you don't understand it, one too many represents one too many.
This is the front of the Larson boat. This one is really, came out nice.
The bar that you see here, this is the starboard side of a 1966 Johnson Boat Works sailboat. This is a transom or the tail end of that same sailboat, the same Johnson sailboat.
The transom off the Eye of Orion eventually gets a new look too. This time, ready for life in dry dock as a dry bar. Old boats once dead in the water, now so alive, thanks to Lee. Coming up next, a festival to help people fly high on the coldest winter days.
Minnesota Bound is brought to you by Minnesota Select GMC dealers, Rapala Ice Force, Star Bank, and by Hewitt Docks, Lifts, and Pontoon Lights.
There's a winter festival in town that requires frozen lakes and cold winter wind. A chilly combination, but it's soaring in popularity. The amount of winter activities our 10,000 frozen lakes provides us has just soared above the rest with a high-flying festival.
Today is the first annual Kites on Ice. We're so excited to bring the people out and get families together.
The polar vortex didn't stop anyone from coming out to play.
Today is the perfect day, even though some people might question that. This is Minnesota, so weather is the way it is. So you've got the Minnesota Kites Association and the American Kites Association here today.
And go.
Beautiful color filling up the sky. But why a kite festival in the dead of winter?
Everybody thinks that, spring is the best time to fly kites. Actually, it's not. It's probably the worst. The wind you're getting now in the wintertime is usually a steady, smooth wind. Turn. Turn.
We thought it was awesome. To get another winter event out in the Midwest is perfect. And knowing that Minnesota has snow and ice, that was awesome.
Minnesota's a land of 10,000 additional flying fields in the wintertime.
Frozen ice and winter wind makes the perfect combination for ideal kite flying, or should I say, kite dancing.
Dichotomy of strength. We're trying to keep the kites level and flying while trying to keep ourselves from falling, even though we are wearing ice cleats. Yeah. So you've got every muscle in your body employed to do, stop, go, not, no,
Reverse, turn. Effectively, it is simple. If you can ride a bike, you can fly one of these.
Yep.
But to keep in time with the music and keep in sync with each other, it takes some effort.
When you're dancing with the kite, Mother Nature is also your dancing partner.
This is so fun!
You have to be in tune with the elements of nature.
Yeah.
Where's the wind coming from? What's the wind speed like? Are there storms moving in?
Yeah.
How far off are they? Is it safe? Do we need to get everything out of the air?
Yeah.
And as you can see by looking at the crowd, this is a sport for children of all ages.
Yeah.
A sport where kites and people of all shapes and sizes are welcome.
The octopus is the largest of all the kites that they'll have today, and that one's 200 pounds. So you can see it takes a little more wind for that one to be lifted up.
Like my manta ray up here, that's 20 feet wide and 90 feet long.
And if you don't ice fish or you don't snowmobile, this is a great opportunity again to just wear 4 layers at least with hand warmers and the right gear. You can be out here and enjoy
But it's still fun, gets everybody out. Great crowd today.
Oh, it's
Just
fantastic.
Awesome.
The Kite Festival, a windy winter activity soaring high on the fun scale, with a 100% guarantee of rosy cheeks and a smile.
We're going to remove them.
Still ahead, we get wild in the kitchen. And later, we go way back in time as Ron Shera offers up his thoughts on why we all love Minnesota winters.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Connecticut.
It's wild in the kitchen time. I'm here with Chef Jim Kimberg from Crave Restaurants, and Chef Jim, we are doing a recipe for the month of January, which is all about health, fitness, diets, you name it. So what are we making today?
We're making a very simple soup. It's actually Asian inspired. It's egg drop soup, but we're incorporating pheasant.
Ooh, that sounds really good. Asian inspiration, but we're gonna take it wild.
We are gonna take it wild, yes.
I'm not seeing any ingredients out here yet.
Well, there's a reason. We're gonna be preparing the soup in the back today, so.
All right,
Follow me.
Do it. Smells like something's cooking. So is this pheasant stock or pheasant bone broth?
You're actually correct on both parts.
Oh.
So if you call it a stock, that implies that it's made with bones, just like a bone broth is. If you call it a broth, that implies it's just made with meat scraps.
Got it. Now there are a lot of health benefits to bone broth, including collagen, which is good for your nails and your skin, your hair, and then it has up to like 10 grams of protein per cup.
It does, yeah. It's really good for you, rich in protein. For sure.
Is this a low and slow process?
It is. So I always translate it to steeping it like tea. So you notice I've got just a really gentle simmer on there. All right, it's time for the pheasant. We're actually gonna poach that pheasant right in the broth. So just carefully place it in there, don't splash it. We still got it on the simmer. So we're gonna cook that through to 165 degrees. On a gentle simmer like this, it's gonna take about 5 to 6 minutes. So they've been in approximately 6 minutes. They are cooked through. We're gonna remove them. We're just gonna set these aside for now. They're gonna go in once the soup is finished. So I think we're ready to add the shallots. You can go ahead and dump those in. And the fresh ginger, we've minced that up really fine.
And why a shallot versus an onion?
Shallot versus an onion has a little more refined flavor.
I like it.
You can use an onion if you don't have a shallot. That'll work.
I like shallots.
Toasted sesame oil.
Oh, one of my favorites. Now, why is this the secret ingredient?
That's what gives egg drop soup that egg drop soup flavor. So it's time to thicken the soup. We're gonna actually be using a little bit of cornstarch. So when you're using cornstarch, we always have to add a little bit of cold water. And if you wanna pour that in a slow stream, I will go ahead and keep stirring. About 2 tablespoons. And lots of eggs, that's what it takes.
You almost need a partner to make this soup.
You can do it by yourself, but it is nice to have a partner for sure. That is the base for egg drop soup.
So easy.
So good.
It's assembly time. Our broth is ready. Pheasant's ready.
Let's do this. If you want to put a couple pieces of pheasant down in there.
Sure do.
There you go. We've got some chives we're going to garnish.
One for you, one for me.
All right.
Yeah, this looks good. That is excellent. So good. You outdid it once again.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Here's to healthy living, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
When it comes to putting your ice house out for the winter, believe it or not, there are some things to consider. We all know the guy who puts his house out, and then when it's time to bring it home at the end of the season, it's frozen into the ice. What happens is, throughout the winter, things change. A big snowstorm might push snow around your house, weighting it down, which brings water up on top of the ice. When it gets cold, the house freezes in. So one way to avoid it if you're gonna leave your house on the ice for any amount of time is very obvious and simple. Put a block under it, like this. There's a 1x4. And what I'm doing here is I'm just creating a little bit of separation between the house and the ice. Now throughout the winter I want to watch. The water comes up from weight around it. I just raise the house up on bigger blocks. Then when I'm ready to go home, I don't have to worry about my house being frozen into the ice. Simple as that. Just remember, when you leave, take the blocks with you.
Straight ahead, a Minnesota-bound classic takes us way back in time. Just why do we love this snowy and cold weather?
Minnesota Bound is brought to you by Ice Castle Fish Houses and by Totem Resorts, the premier destination for world-class fishing.
It seems a little bit funny. A lot of us love this winter weather when temps drop below zero and snow flies, which takes us back to 1997, the year Ron Shera sort of realized that Minnesotans love winter.
Truth be told, winter is us, Minnesota. Winter is our historic birthright and the root of our traffic jams. In 1940, Otto Schmalzbauer couldn't even open his store in New Brighton. Fact is, winter wars never end. In 1939, the folks in Floodwood had to shovel fast and plenty just to get around town. Winter or not, life in Floodwood and the day's mail would carry on. But winter also is nature's executioner. Life ended for these duck hunters on November 11th, 1940. An Armistice Day storm turned into a killer. Winter in Minnesota is merely a time to cope, not conquer. We learned that. Some of us stay inside to foil the winter blahs. Back in 1909, a trapper named Mike Skunk Metalski spent his winter guarding his catch of furs. If you live in Minnesota long enough, you learn snow and cold is no match for the human spirit. We turn ice into sailing or into skating rinks, rinks cleared by horsepower. Ice became a reason to go fishing, though you still have to wait for a bite and wait and wait. Unless you have company, of course, a fishing contest on White Bear Lake in 1955. Minnesotans also learned to turn a four-letter word, snow, into a three-letter word, fun. We took to snowshoes, not always smoothly, and cross-country skis. In 1910, swish and swoosh were the sounds made by skis and by dresses. We had parties for toboggans, and kids and sleds go together like snow and ice. Old Man Winter never could blunt our imagination. We had one-dog sled races and sometimes two-dog fights. The 1917 St. Paul Winter Carnival featured horse skiing contests. Hey, what happened to that event? In 1890, high-flying Norwegians performed the first ski jumping exhibition using the hills around Glenwood, Minnesota. Ski jumping launched other ideas. The inventive owner of this Model A Ford in 1922 may not have known it, but he could have inspired snowmobiles. Now we know winters still come and winters still go, but some things never change. Will we ever stay off thin ice? Probably not in 100 years.
Just a couple more months and we'll be prepping for spring turkey hunting season.
And a little bit of crappie fishing too.
That's right.
Can't wait.
Well, if you have a story idea for us or just want to check in, make sure you stop by the Minnesota Bound Facebook page.
Until next week, don't forget to introduce a kid to the great outdoors.
Transportation provided by Premier Transportation. Call 1-800-899-7433. To get more Minnesota Bound, including full episodes, go to mnbound.com. And to follow our latest adventures, like us on Facebook.